Hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast. This is a very special episode because for the first time ever in my podcast history, I have my friend Ole-Kristian here. He's not only my friend though, as you will have seen from the description, he is my current boss. So I have to be on best behaviour, obviously, and there's tons and tons of jokes, I'm sure, that will come in. And this may never even go to air because we might say things that we're not supposed to say. Maybe we approach subjects we're not supposed to approach. But let's see how it goes. I'm going to talk not to the camera. I'm going to talk to Ole-Kristian, who's sitting in my room with me. And he's not going to talk to the camera that's there. He's going to talk to me. So... This is so weird for me. Ole-Kristian, thank you so much for coming all the way to Oslo just for the podcast, just to record the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. and thank you. I would say this is a new experience for me, watching not the camera but you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
not that I'm experienced watching camera though, but I'm watching you now.
So Ole-Kristian has actually been one of the biggest, I won't say fans, one of the biggest consistent audience members of this podcast, which is epic. So you've listened to almost all the episodes, or at least you've told me you've listened to almost all the episodes.
I have.
And I thought it would be really interesting to sort of reflect a little bit about the journey so far that I've had and that you've sort of joined me on in that way. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself before I let you introduce yourself. So that's, as you know, the standard. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, what you've been up to, and where you're at now, and a little bit about your journey.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for welcoming me on the podcast. You asked me maybe a month back or so, and then I said yes, but when I have the time, and we kind of been postponing it for weeks, and now suddenly I'm here in Oslo. It's also the first period that we're actually allowed to travel to Oslo for a while now, so it's fine in that sense. Yeah, exactly. So we're the same cohort now, right? Yeah, a bit about myself. You introduced my name. I'm Ole-Kristian. I figured it would be interesting, that would be something I shouldn't say, but hopefully, to tell more about the impacts in my life and how I got where I am right now, right? First of all, I think I got the golden ticket. I was born in Norway. You are bragging about Norway. You lived here now for a year almost.
Just almost a year, yeah.
Yeah. And you see all the benefits of being a Norwegian. So that's the golden ticket for sure. Also, safe environment, safe family. I grew up a couple of hours north of Oslo. I would say I had really standard or a safe environment. I did sports. I was taken care of by my mother and my father, and I have a brother who is loving. So everything was set. So in terms of building a win or getting somewhere, everything was set on a gold plate for me growing up there. Going to the biggest impact, maybe I would say, and this might sound a bit cliche, but when I met Marita, which is my now the mother of my kids. I have two daughters, same age as yours. The reason why I mention her so quickly is because I met her.
If she does listen to the podcast, she knows she's got a good mention.
Exactly, so I need to do this. No, for real. I met her when I was 18. It's kind of like the brink of the big changes in life, and we're still together. So that's back in 2004. So strange thinking that we're still now. Well, we're now a family. The reason why I mention her is that there's this saying, the better half of you, and I would definitely say that she, during all these years, has impacted the way I think, how I'm open-minded, everything, and she's now a psychologist, and I think that that's a really fitting profession for her, for sure. Her interest in people, how she looks at, let's say, struggles or different characters, or let's not go way too deep into that, but open up my mind for sure, and kind of made me a better version of myself. Not reshaping, but shaping, perhaps. Yeah. So mentioning her quite quickly there.
That's all right. It's good.
A second big impact, I would say, because growing up, everything was sports, fun, no big obstacles, I would say. Did well with both sports and school. But then when I was 18, I joined the army. I was there on a leadership program. And the reason why I bring that up, because lately there's been a show on Norwegian television about celebrities joining the army, and kind of like I get all these flashbacks on how it was and how much I actually learned from that period there. That leadership course really brought me from being a boy into becoming a man, if that's allowed to say. But it actually did, because I'm not sure if you could, or if I want to transfer how to execute leadership into work life today, or within private or in the family, whatever. But being broken down, like the way we were first they break you down and then they build up again. And when you get down to the bottom, you're just one out of many. And then you kind of learn that it's a team, or it's not me anymore. It's that we have to succeed or get the task done or whatever. And I think, I benefited massively from that experience. And I learned that I could work harder, I can go further when it gets tough. It's just temporary. Also, ask a teammate, because it's not you that win or loses, it's a team. And those experiences, or those takeaways, kind of helped me moving into the adult life, I would say. First studies, a lot of teamwork there, and then later on work, where mainly I've been working with both sales and marketing. But within both areas, it's been team-based, and maybe for the last 8 years or something, I've also been a manager. And having that as a priority, to kind of focus on the team and not myself, I think that's been valuable. And I learned that when I was 18 in the army, so that's why I bring it up. I think that was who I am, where I'm at in terms of some kind of resume and some external.
Well, I think it would be odd to come up later in the podcast. So how I ended up working with you is kind of funny, but also more like I need to mention my wife at this point. Maybe she'll listen to that. She never listens to the podcast, so maybe she'll listen to this one. Who knows? But you worked closely with Louisa way back, in maybe 9 years ago or something, and in the team for EF in Norway, in Oslo, and that's where we met as well, because I was working a bit with with Norwegian team. Just to kind of give context, so I knew Ole-Kristian I knew you through that connection, and obviously we'd worked a bit together, and somehow you felt that I might be a good fit for joining the company that we both now work for. So I have to say, thank you very much for trusting me. I hope I'm doing an okay job. It's going to be super awkward if you give me a feedback now in front of the camera.
No, you're good.
But yeah, just to kind of give the context of how we ended up together and how I got to know Ole-Kristian. So you know Louisa really well, and are good friends, I would say. And in fact, I would say we're friends as well. I hope that's okay to say.
Of course, I think we quickly hit it off. I'm, as you now can hear, I'm also a former EFer. It's been a few guests, of course. It's your network, and it's mine as well. So that's why I also think it's quite interesting, those podcasts, because many people I know from at some level, but also people I heard of. So it's interesting to learn their take on different topics.
So okay, so the couple of things I wanted to go through. One was like the podcasts themselves and how the journey's been for me, because I think when you first interviewed me, I sort of talked about this book. In fact, when we first got when I was first interviewing with you, I didn't know I was interviewing with you. So there was like this weird moment where you turned around and said, this is an interview, right? And I was like, I've told that story so many times to you because I think it's hilarious, because I really didn't. At that moment in time, I'd obviously lost my job in EF in Hong Kong. We'd moved here. it was pretty chaotic. It was kind of crazy times in COVID, you know, moving home country with 2 little people and trying to settle and find a job was pretty hectic. And I'd gone on a bit of a very focused set of maneuvers for myself in getting fit and also making sure I just helped people as much as possible. And that was like my focus. And so when I met you, I was just in the mode of like help. And if I can offer anything to anyone in a network in Norway that might help me find a job, that's going to be good. So that was what I was doing when I met you. And then I was like sitting there with you. We were discussing the business and discussing your challenges, some of your challenges and things that you had. And I just thought I was helping or trying to help. And then you said, oh, this is an interview. And I'm like, oh, cool. I better put a decent shirt on. Yeah, so that was, I think that was, I just wanted to also give context because I want to challenge you or talk to you about the fact that I've done this podcast because I said to you then, I'm doing this podcast, I'm thinking about doing a podcast and I'm doing this book. And you've then faithfully, I suppose, followed the journey, which has been amazing. And you've given me some great feedback and given me some comments, which a lot of people don't give me feedback. So people out there that you're listening, please do. I really do appreciate the feedback. I appreciate comments. But what would you say are, because I think for me, the guests are what make it. And what make it so special for me, obviously, the conversations. And what would you say are the best guest moments or the best guests that I've had? I don't want to go so much into negatives on the guest front.
Yeah, no, I don't know if I can highlight any, well, maybe, but I would say actually your first guest is the one I remember the most, Uncle John. Probably because he is a storyteller. He really had the he put across his points, his views, and also his story very well, and it was very, very much interesting to listen to how it was back then and how he kind of all the things he's done. He has tons of experience in both in work and also as a climber, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And and also I think those things are interesting. So it kind of that caught my attention, I would say. So as a guest, I would say him.
Yeah, Uncle John, he's so cool because he's such an energy bomb. I think that's one of the things I love about a lot of the guests I've had is like they're energy bombs, which kind of, but he in particular is just this guy. He's got this infectious way about him, and it's like that in real life. Like, and it came across, I think, in the podcast, but it's like that in real life. You sort of sit in a room with him, and he's like, so, he's like instantly like, so, just get right. What are we doing? Where's the energy, positive, and it's like
you get that feeling from listening.
Yeah, and he's just so insanely positive about everything, and oh, that's great, man, that's great. He's like says things like that, and he's always been like that. And I think there are, for me, that's one of the very special qualities, and also why he I think has done so well in that way. Yeah, I agree with you. I think I don't know if I'm not even allowed probably to say, I make the rules, so on myself, I'm not allowed to say who my favourites are. But Uncle John was definitely, when I first started thinking about the podcast, I was like, who can I invite? And I'm like, that man has really set of special stories.
Yeah, he set the standard, I would say.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know if that's true, but it sounded like he has told his story before. So he probably has some experience in that, because I think telling your story and your views and how you're making wins along during the journey of life, put on the spot, it's not easy. And I can recognize from so many of the interviews that they had a lot of potential. They had very interesting characters. They had loads of experience, and they have loads of wins. But I felt that he put across everything that he wanted to say, or at least what I think was interesting to hear.
I think it probably helps he wrote a book.
Yeah, exactly.
So he wrote a book which is called Restless, and that really did, I guess, set out for him a lot of the experiences that he had. But yeah, he is naturally a storyteller. So I think alongside that, he's just very comfortable to reminisce and regale those stories. Yeah. So in terms of negatives, I'm not going to ask you who the worst guests are, but I'm just like interested to know, like, for you, stand out kind of like, what are things which you think should be changed in the podcast, or what should like happen to make it better?
Yeah.
Change the person interviewing.
No, first of all, when you say something in podcast, you must commit. I think I pinpointed that tons of times. You said, I'm starting yoga. I think you said it maybe 8 podcasts in a row or something. And I asked you every podcast, after every podcast, started yoga yet? And now you have done yoga, actually.
Yeah, I haven't told people that, actually. So I did start yoga, and I did 30 days in a row of yoga. So fuck you. No, I
after feedback.
I like that. It was after feedback, and it was no, I think I'm also someone who's easily excitable, and so I get into ideas.
I can relate to that, so I'm not judging. That was a bit more of a fun take of it. Now, I also think I said this to you during one of many conversations about your podcast, actually. And I think I touched base on the topic, meaning that you had a few interesting profiles who kind of they didn't put across their wins or maybe their the purpose of the interview, kind of like it fell a bit through. I don't know how to say it differently, but I could sense, or I could get the understanding why there's the win conversation here, but I didn't really get the takeaway. So how did you get there? What was the real purpose, or well, the purpose of a conversation maybe? But that's it's understandable, because when you're interviewing guests, you're taking up their time, and I don't know how they prepare and stuff like that, but.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I hear exactly what you're saying. It's an interesting point, because it's. I think one of the challenges I've found with doing this is it's quite difficult in the moment to know how to extract, the best story, because I'm always about authenticity. I'm trying to make sure it's an authentic conversation. I'm trying really hard to make sure it feels like natural and that it's not staged. And even this feels a bit staged. We set up. You
Lights.
lot out there, anyone watching, can't see the chaos that Ole-Kristian can see, but now he sat down, he's like, oh wow.
Yeah, I felt like I'm in the studio. I did media training once, but once the spotlight is in your face, like, okay, it's happening.
But also, I have so much crap hidden out of shot of the camera, so hopefully the shots don't show all of the mess in this room. But it is pretty chaotic in here. So and now we're doing this live. It is like for me it's a new thing. It's outside my comfort zone, which I like and stuff. But I think I've forgotten even why I came into this. But I think I was talking about like the style of doing it. You don't know what's coming next, and even if you're trying to make it authentic, it's still staged to some extent. You've got that big light up there to make sure we're nicely lit and things for the camera. We've tried to make these microphones near to us, so the sound quality is hopefully good. And I've got a lot of that going on in my head whilst I'm trying to think, what's the next question? How do I make sure I keep this conversation going? And you never know where the conversation's exactly going to head. So I hear you, and I don't really know how to fix that either. But I think just maybe with
I don't
practice.
have the answer either. It's just, I have to say, it's impressive how you started off at a quite high level, I would say, in terms of the first podcast. You kind of caught my attention already.
Downhill from there. Uncle John nailed it. Oh shit.
No, what I mean is that you are. I'm giving you some credit. You are a talented podcaster, I would say. So the quality is good. Don't take this the wrong way. It's just that, and I don't know how, but there's some wins or some takeaways that we were missing in some of the conversations. But how to fix that? Leave a comment behind.
If you can fix it, stick a comment below or wherever. No, I think I appreciate that, and I appreciate that feedback, and I think the other thing that I learned from that was to do some show notes as well, which are absolute ball ache, but people seem to appreciate that. Like, write out the timestamps of what we're going to talk about, and also I've started giving a little bit of a, after I've recorded, I give a little bit of a prompt to set the conversation up a little bit more. And I'm hoping that helps, because it's sort of, it's then like, who are they? If it's not clear from the conversation, or what did we talk about? Well, if that's not clear, then I can sort of punch a little bit in the beginning. And hopefully that makes it a bit more interesting. But I'm very conscious of over talking, and even now I'm like, oh my god, I'm sitting here chatting away. It's too much. I want to ask you though, because I know in terms of wins, and let's talk a little bit about your wins and your more around your philosophy of winning, because obviously you've heard me ask the question quite a few times now to different people, what's your philosophy on winning? But I think I'm just going to sort of fast forward into what I already know in terms of our conversation. So I'm going to try and get the audience up to speed on that. But I think resilience is a huge component to winning, to being able to be the best at something, to being able to persevere, and perseverance and resilience are two key components that sort of sit within any winning profile or any achievement. And I sort of started to talk to you a bit about that, but I actually wanted to capture your thoughts live and have that conversation a bit more naturally without having had it already. Because you have faced some enormous challenges in your life, and I know that. And if you're comfortable to talk about them, I would love for you to share that, because also around that, specifically with the sort of mindset of how did that build resilience, how did that access your resilience, what are your thoughts on resilience or perseverance, those sort of things. So I mean, if you don't mind sharing a bit, and you can frame it however you want to frame it, and if you don't want to talk about it, that's absolutely fine. I completely respect your and we can cut it out afterwards, no problem. But with that, if I can sort of set you up to talk a bit about that, because I know it's something you're interested in as well, right? I hope it is.
Well, yeah, of course. It's I assume you're talking about my family and my mother and brother specific, I think. This is way out of my comfort zone, sharing that on video, but I will. I think it's a great topic to discuss, and I need to discuss it even more going forward, even though I've been kind of hiding it under the rug for many years. I talk about it when I'm asked, or if I meet new people or stuff like that, but I haven't really, I don't have the story that John probably would have.
You haven't told it a lot of times.
No, I haven't told it, and every time I tell it, it's like the first time. But I'll give it a shot, and I won't go too deep into specifics, but lay out the let's talk about the challenge, I think. It was back in 2010. You can start off with my mother first. So I was actually doing the journey or the experience of my life. I was in Africa at the time. I was in in Namibia. 6 weeks prior, I landed with a bunch of two friends, and we were landed in Johannesburg. We bought a Land Rover. We drove to the Kalahari Desert. We camped there with lions. We traveled to Cape Town. I learned how to kite. We traveled up the coastline. Ended up in Namibia. And I was there on the beach in... I can't remember the place now, but was kiting, and there was a missed call on my phone, and then I saw there was a message as well, and that message wasn't meant for me. It was meant for my father. It was for my cousin, who sent, "I'm thinking of you and your brother right now." So I got suspicious right away, like, what is this message? What does it mean? And then I called my father, and he said, "Your mother is dead." So I was at the beach in Namibia, far away from family, and at the time I didn't know how and why, so I just packed up, went to the airport. It was a hell of a ride back home. I was first of all had to travel, I think it was 6 hours to the airport. They didn't have the flights ready. So I was in. It's kind of like it's a bit of a black phase as well. I don't remember everything, but I managed to talk to someone of importance there, and they understood that okay, he needs to go home somehow. So I traveled, but flights doesn't always go as planned. So I ended up in Copenhagen. I had to stay the night there, and then 2 days. I think 2 days after I received the message, I came back to Oslo, and then saw my father and my brother for the first time since I heard the message. And it was and the thing is that I learned then when I came back home and I was surrounded by family, so it was a safe zone. I learned that she committed suicide, which is at that point I didn't understand why or how that was actually an option, because she was never she was really protective. I learned later on she had a lot of struggles, depression. She had her own fights, but she never showed that. And learning that kind of hurt, of course, but at the same time, I would say it really strengthened the relationship between the rest of the family in terms of, well, then we talked more openly, I would say. I think the point is that it actually surprised me, and I think that's not a really good thing. I didn't really see it, the whole issue and everything she was struggling with. At the age of 24, my mother committed suicide. So I would say that was a tough point in my life.
A little bit.
Yeah,
I'm
and
so
that's
sorry.
now 11 years back. Yeah. And I think I tell this story in different version every time, once a year, maybe. So it's almost like telling it for the first time, and I never told it like this before. So this is
I mean, just listening, it's so devastating. I'm not even sure this will ever go out because I feel it's so personal. But we can obviously talk about it afterwards and decide. But I really appreciate you sharing it with me anyway. And my God, it's horrific, absolutely horrific. And you said about your brother as well. We should. Yeah, maybe you mentioned your brother.
Yeah, so that's been since birth. I would say something that I had to. It's been part of my life. It's not a big deal per se, but it's he has a handicap, a small one, meaning that he is a bit different. But you wouldn't notice it if you didn't know. It's also the tricky part is that he then falls in between. Because you don't know for sure, and now he's in a good space, has a steady job, he's grown, he lives on his own, everything is fine. Of course, he still is a bit in limbo in some settings and in life, of course, and he was always have that. It's called Klinefelter syndrome. It basically means that you would perceive him as a normal guy, but he just has he doesn't have all the skill sets, I would say.
I think it's learning difficulties.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. And as a kid, that's a huge challenge for him. So he's 5 years older than me, and he faced a lot of challenges, and I saw that up close with both him, but of course also how this affected the family. I wouldn't say it's negative in total. Of course, all the incidents, how other kids were treating him or putting him in situations he shouldn't. That was, of course, I think that was also quite hard for my mother to take, but she was super, and he is weekly, if not weekly, kind of expressing how he misses her. Yeah.
Oh man, it's so heavy. And I obviously have known this story, or as you said, I don't think you've ever told me the whole story with your mum, but I obviously knew that the key points. And I mean, I'm on the verge of crying, so I don't know how you're feeling right now, but
Yeah,
but I think
it's a training, I would say.
I think alongside that, with the challenge of your brother, and the fact that the challenge of your brother feeling like that, and you feeling, I think maybe what's slightly missing from your story is probably a sense of responsibility from your side, and the weight that perhaps sometimes feels. I mean, I know you probably don't want to talk about it like that, but
no, but I quickly learned from an early age that I needed to, or it felt naturally that I had to look after him somehow, and I didn't know how or could even do it when I was younger. But as I got older, I think the relationship is really good, and I appreciate him really much for how he is, and kind of letting me also contribute the way that I can. So now, for instance, he's visiting us weekly. He is a great uncle.
He's the funkle, right?
Yeah.
The funkle is.
He's definitely the best because if you have kids, and not everyone has that, so for those who have, when you have friends over or family over, they play with the kids for 5 minutes, and then they go back to the adult conversation, then they play for another 5 minutes. So the kids it's super fun to have uncle around, and then it's kind of like, okay, what about me? But it's different with Uncle Mats. He's 100% on their terms.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to try and make something here because we talked a bit about the resilience factor, and I think if anyone has a reason to have developed resilience, that story you've just told for me is the ultimate. I mean, it's absolutely devastating. Must have been devastating. Did you feel that you built some resilience out of it? Did you feel a change in the way in which you behave, or the way in which you take on things? I mean, is there anything there, or am I just grasping at straws?
Yeah, I would say yes. Of course, it has affected me massively as a human being. Of course, how I view things, how I appreciate things, how I appreciate others. Also, how I prioritize. It's also for the good and the bad, if you could say that. I used to say yes to everything. That was kind of like I was the yes guy until I was 24, I would say. But then it's not sustainable, that either. Then you're halfway into everything. So I think one of the big takeaways or learnings or changes was that I started saying much more no, I would say, and prioritize what did I actually want to do and what made me happy, and stuff like that. So that's I think people, when they experience something, put things in perspective, then you do something with your, what do you want to do with your life? So,
so in terms of your attitude though, because obviously then you're sort of saying yes to, you said yes to things, and then you started saying no. Do you mean you prioritized you said yes to things you didn't particularly want to do? Yeah. What do you mean by that? Like, is it,
I don't know how to get specific on it, but let's say how I spent my time. It wasn't necessarily on the premises that I wanted. I kind of just said yes either to please, or fear of missing out was also. I was always eager to join in on whatever. It could be something interesting. But then also, I don't know how to put it, but saying no, then you can actually do more of the stuff that you wanted to do. So it's not that I said no to something specific, but it's just the volume decreased, I would say.
And what about this sort of resilience part, or like, being tough to keep going, like that I mean, that's for me, resilience is like just keep bloody going, you know, like in just persevering. I don't know. I'm sure someone in the comments maybe can write the difference between resilience and perseverance, and I can sort of imagine it, but the two sit very closely for me. And it's like this, you know, being tough enough to just see things through. I see you as a pretty tough guy, like, and not in a sort of fighting sense, you know. Obviously, beat the crap out of you if I.
Yeah, of course.
If I go post to like work or something. No, but I mean, I see you as a tough, tough mentally, and I can imagine some of that has come. Maybe some of it came from the army experience and things, but I don't know, or maybe you had it all along. What do you think to that, or do you think it's changed? Like the challenges have changed you, or in that way?
Well, resilience is a field I shouldn't comment too much on because it's way out of my competence. But I know.
Me too. But I'm doing a podcast on wind building. So.
Yeah. And then the saying "yeah" is Norwegian for "I agree." Let's move on. It's not being rude. I learned that working in EF. It sounds like yeah, whatever. It's not like that. No, being resilient is more. What I think is more about genes. So I was lucky. I'm born the way I am. Is my take on it. I had that in my body already, or in my mind, or in my genes. I don't know how to put it. So when that happened, it was a dark place. But what I did was that I took responsible for everything. Need to organize. So for the next 4 months, I was home fixing things, and I would say you refer to me as tough mentally. That's been part of me my whole life. I've always been that in sports. I was that in army. That's why I thought it was interesting, and it gave me something. I think that's also you need to be in the right space to think that's a good thing, being broken down, right? And also later on, yes, I think resilience is part of you, but maybe happening or something like that triggers it, and you get more of that resilience benefits, I would say.
I wonder. I'm definitely not an expert either, and that's why I'm very interested by it, because obviously when you read a lot of, you know, conventionally successful people's stories, and a lot of very sort of famous people, they've got a story where at some point they were broke, or at some point they had, you know, some tragedy, or at some point they had, you know, they were abused or something like that. Like there's all sorts of awful stories sometimes attached to these sort of incredibly successful people, and you know, no pennies left in the, you know, desperately searching for food kind of thing, up to billionaire. And I always wonder, I'm like, it's obviously a nice story to tell, but I do wonder if there's something around this sort of, you know, once you've faced the darkest places, does that open up a confidence inside you, or just does that access something inside you which makes you recognize, I've got a lot more here to give? I mean, I don't know. I'm sort of wondering, and I sort of wonder. I mean, I've faced a few challenges, nothing on the scale of yours, but I've faced a few challenges, and I feel like they've definitely benefited me. I mean, I feel sort of, it's going to sound odd, but I feel kind of glad that I've experienced the life I've experienced and the challenges I've experienced, even if at the time they happened I really, you know, didn't want them to happen and things. But I wonder, because I've never faced that sort of catastrophic life change where, you know, my mum suddenly died, or young. I mean, my dad is now died, but he died relatively old, and, you know, he died in the way one would hope someone would die. That sounds awful, but you know what I mean.
I don't know. I think because I'm living with a psychologist who talk to people who has they don't have a good life every day. That's her job, speaking to people and trying to help them. And most cases they had a bad upcoming or experience, or something, and then you have the same stories, but they go through a phase and then they achieve something great. I'm not saying that whenever you are struggling and talking to a psychologist, you're not resilient, but I'm just saying that if you're then achieving something great afterwards, it's more than just the episode. I think it's just that you're built in a certain way. That's what I think. Resilience is. It's a very difficult topic to pinpoint, I would say. What's resilience and who has it?
I think you're probably right. I think it's also let's get back to win building, I suppose, because one of the things I've noticed in studying and reading books about winning and obviously interviewing the people I've interviewed, I've noticed there's a consistency of kind of being motivated in the right way to achieve the thing they need to achieve, and that boils down to having worked in education a long time. That boils down to as well, like if you've got a teacher who can inspire curiosity in their kids, that is the best teacher in the world for those kids, right? If they can inspire curiosity, and anyone that can inspire curiosity in someone is special, and the inspiration of curiosity is the thing that we need to learn, really. It's not, what the equation is. It's that I want to learn about the equation, and I want to study more about that and understand it and understand what's happening in this field. Again, my opinion, I'm not an expert, but I haven't worked in that field. But I think that scales up to this kind of like, if you're going to be the best at something or achieve something, then it's like you've got to be passionate, interested, something motivated enough to really put the work in to get it done, to practice towards it, to decide or to embrace the fails that you have along the way as well.
Yeah. And I think to make a great achievement, whatever that is, you should have some baggage, or you should experience something, maybe a challenge or something kind of helping you realize that, well, you have to work harder, or someone else has it worse than me. There's always some learning from having a challenge or experience that is bad. Put it into this basket of resilience. That's kind of a topic that it's difficult to kind of address. Is that the real?
Yeah, I wonder if I'm sort of maybe I am grasping at straws, but it's very interesting to consider. It's an interesting topic to consider about. Also, you said facing these challenges is important, or having that baggage is important, because you understand someone's always got it worse than you. It's like, is that the reason it's valuable as well, or is it actually the fact that having experienced something really negative, you can handle that?
Yeah.
So you can handle quite a lot of shit in your life and keep going, and that I think, for me, that's where the resilience sort of concept or whatever the attachment for me comes. But let's take resilience off the table then. But it's like that mental toughness maybe, or the life experiences, understanding yourself, I think is super key there. You learn a massive amount about yourself in crisis and in turmoil, I suppose.
Yeah. And you learn about your flaws as well.
Yeah.
Which is, when do you do that on a day-to-day, except when your wife is telling you?
yeah. Louise, if she's ever going to listen to this, will laugh, because it's like she finds about her flaws every day. She calls me the housewife in our relationship, because
that's a good thing.
I'm constantly commenting on the dishwasher, for example.
Then life is good, if that's the
if that's our struggle. My God, we've got the golden ticket as well. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna try and switch gears again to lighten up and let's sort of send this home. I don't know how long we've been talking about. I haven't really kept track, but I don't want to kind of. I feel like this was got quite deep and dark, and I feel. I feel brutally. I don't know. I feel so bad about your story, but I know that you're you've sort of grown into this sort of great positive guy. So I know you've got through it, but it must be still a major challenge. So with that, let me talk about challenges that we're doing, because I didn't tell you I was going to ask about this.
Oh, no.
But I'm really interested to know why. So I haven't told anyone on the podcast either, but I'm going to brag now. I started doing Insanity, which is a 60-day workout program.
Yeah.
I started doing that 30-something days ago, and we are about to hit the second month, which is crazy. And I say we because you decided to come along with me last minute.
Yeah.
It took me weeks of deciding and telling Louisa, I think I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to challenge myself. And I was really intimidated by it, and I was reading up about it, and I was like, well, I've done some of them before, but I've never done this program, never stuck to it. And then you're just like, oh, I'll do that. Yeah. And you're doing it. You've done it. You've kept up, and you're doing it. And I'm kind of fascinated by how that part of Ole-Kristian works. Like, why is that the yes man? Is that that part of
sure.
it?
Yeah, I'm a yes man, and I'm always up for a challenge, and that's especially before I was 24. But also, of course, it's not that I'm saying no to a bunch of things. Those things I still want to say yes to. So I think also because I was two small kids, and it doesn't, time-wise, didn't have the time to do something like that, or I didn't prioritize the time to do something like that. So when you said that, my youngest one is just turned 2 years old. So kind of the first time I feel like we have some control.
Yeah.
So actually I felt, okay, this challenge I could execute. And also I didn't know what I was going into. So when you said it was brutal, I was like, yeah, sure.
I've done CrossFit.
I'll try it. Yeah, and I've done CrossFit. And I know how brutal CrossFit can be, and I did that, sweating and crying and puking, and the fact is that whenever I get down to the basement of what I can handle, I think that's really great. I love that feeling. Yeah. So if I'm sore the day after, that's the best feeling.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, I have had a couple of moments where I perhaps didn't love this experience of the 5 days we've done, but that was mainly because it was raining and it's 9 p.m. and all I wanted to do is curl up on the sofa, and I've got to go downstairs and do a freaking workout, which sucks.
Well, that's the benefit of having a house.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I live in the city, and I have to go down to luckily we have a shared garden, but and I'm not complaining about where I live, but I don't have a house like Ole-Kristian, who lives in a beautiful town with a view over the lake, and it's absolutely idyllic.
So I have roof.
So what challenge is next is the next question. So I'm briefly mentioning to you what I've got in mind for myself, but what's the next thing then? Because I feel like you're ready to absolutely blitz. You said I'm going to start running again, but I'm like, I want to set down some. Yeah, I want this on video. If this never goes public, I'm still going to send it to you. What's next?
No, I haven't thought of that. Completing this, that's also a thing with me. I live now, pretty much. So in terms of dreams and what to do in 10 years, I don't really spend time wandering of the path there. So right now it's just to complete those next 30 days. I think we're just above halfway, right?
So we have the craziest.
And now it's going to max
trainings coming up, which you're really I mean, maybe I'm bigging them up, but they are painful. Yeah. They're an hour long each.
But what I was planning before you mentioned that was to pick up my running game, run more. And I think Insanity, this 2 months session or 9 weeks or what it is helping me get there, because I need more stamina, I need more capacity in the lungs, I need more muscles in my legs, because I'm quite heavy. It doesn't look like it is, does it? But when I'm running, it's fatigue on my ankles and my knees. Yeah. And if I'm to continue doing that, I need to do something. So this is actually, it fitted that plan quite well. If that doesn't go, then the next is cross country, and there's a big thing in Norway called Birken, and it's not that it's Birken itself, it's just that I need a goal, so that could be the goal.
Yeah, so cross country skiing, to anyone listening who's not in or familiar with Norwegians or Norway.
We are born with skis on our legs.
It's a very, very popular thing here. And when you say I'm going skiing here, you mean cross-country skiing. You don't mean what most other people in the world mean, which is downhill.
Downhill? Why would you do that? You don't get pulse from that.
I have to say, it's excellent cardio, and it is a beautiful sport. So, I mean, I'm converting gradually, but... yeah, this last winter wasn't the one for us with COVID restrictions and new life in Norway and everything else going along with that. So we didn't manage to get out. But well, Louisa got out once, I think. But next winter, and you're gonna see. Hopefully, I'll come and do it alongside you, and you'll just get very frustrated watching me. Like Pingu on skis, like just moving the skis backwards and forwards and not going anywhere.
Why would I get frustrated? I have a kid that hasn't learned to ski yet, so you can
just tie her to me.
Yeah.
Elvira and Ilva, can you take him for a ski, please?
Yeah. She's actually skiing now, so you gotta step up. She's 2 years old.
Hopefully by then I'll get my game up. No, but I so cool. So running game is the thing you've said.
And I have to explain.
I'm still gonna challenge you because I'm not just gonna let you slide on that.
Half a marathon because of the legs.
Why don't we do more than that? Why don't we do a marathon in the mountains?
If the body holds up.
What do you mean if?
Well, I'm sitting here with a back pain.
Where is this going on video? Okay, so we can fix your back. I think we should get you on trail running, mountain running.
Okay.
We're going to sign ourselves up.
When?
Because I want to also do one.
Yeah, when?
I don't know. Let's do it like before the winter.
Okay.
Before it gets really cold, because really cold is not probably as comfortable for anyone. Hey, we don't shake hands ever nowadays. That's awesome. Let's do it.
Yeah.
A trail run in the mountains over 42 kilometers.
Let's do it live.
Yeah, we'll live stream it. We'll be like, this is such a terrible idea. I'm so tired.
Yeah.
Ole-Kristian's knees are hurting.
The whole way.
No, I did one in Innsbruck. It's the only one I've ever done that's longer than a marathon distance, and it was only a tiny bit longer than marathon distance, but it had loads of elevation, and it was such a magical experience. I loved it. So it took me forever to do it though, so it definitely wasn't like 3.5 hour marathon or 3 hour marathon. I think my friend Barney, who I interviewed earlier on the podcast, he's just done some crazy, he came third in some marathon race in like under 3 hours or something ridiculous. He's just did crazy. No, he did a 100-kilometer race. That was a 105-kilometer race.
Yeah, that's
not even, it's just bananas. And I've got loads of friends who run crazy distances. Shout out to Jen, who also listens to most of the podcast. She runs crazy distances and stuff. So I think we should, maybe not a crazy distance, but like something significant. Let's do it.
Yeah, you decide. I'll just tag along.
Love it. All right, well, thank you so much, Ole-Kristian. This has been awesome. I thank you guys for listening out there and watching, if you've been watching on the YouTube channel. I super appreciate it. I'm giving this sort of opportunity at the end of the podcast. I'm not sure if people switch off when I say that last bit, like the thank you so much, but I give this opportunity to kind of words of wisdom. Is there anything you want to put out there to the world that is advice to a younger self, or advice to those seeking out challenges and achievement?
To the younger self,
maybe,
or youngsters, or no, this is probably is to everyone. Don't beat yourself up. That's kind of like my takeaway. It's a movie I saw when I was maybe 15 and it had a big impact. Don't take life too seriously. You never get out alive. That was, and I live by that. I think it's actually Ryan Reynolds. I think I said it in some shitty movie. he's a legend. So, all right, cool. Well, thank you so much, Ole-Kristian, and I wish you all the best with working with that legend that you have hired. I hope it works out as a good working relationship. Please don't ever fire him, and I love you. Well, that's a good way to end.